you cool cats and munchkins out there, it's Munchie, and I am the chaotic good of your entire world. Welcome on in, where I explore all the possibilities of yelling and screaming at stuff. But today we're going to be a little bit more educational here. Today we are discussing the good substrate to be using for your hamsters, your gerbils, and your mice. Because here in Munchie's place, I run a rescue, so a lot of this stuff is used constantly, and I want to provide good feedback for you guys on what we typically use here and maybe what to avoid. So today we're only going to be talking about appropriate substrate, as I say in the reptile world. But here we're going to be talking about bedding. And bedding functionality. What's it used for? How can we apply it to our enclosures? So bedding is typically used for an absorbent for the urine and ammonia smell. Whew. And a lot of people, when they think of hamsters, they think of that really funky smell. And unfortunately, if you are housing an animal in such confined areas, that smell will get kind of overwhelming. But in my case, at the rescue, we actually provide big enclosures, especially for Syrian hamsters. And so the bigger the area, the more likely it is you're not going to be smelling that stuff, and the more bedding you use, the less likely you're going to be having to clean up constantly when it comes to that smell. So bedding is supposed to be able to absorb the ammonia and to clean up messes while also providing your companion the safety and comfort of providing them with nesting material, or just in general keeping their body temperatures comfortable through warm temperatures and cold temperatures. So bedding is used for mainly that. Besides, you could say bedding is enrichment, but you kind of need bedding for everything. First things first, let's talk about appropriate wood, because there is problems with wood out there when it comes to bedding. And now throughout my YouTube hamster life from 2018 to about 2019, I was told that pine, if it's kiln dried, is fine. And I've been told that by vet techs. I've been told that by hobbyists or breeders that, you know, pine that's been kiln dried should be fine for hamsters, gerbils, and mice. However, from my talks with the California Hamster Association and the leaders at different ethical hamsteries, that they do not recommend kiln dry because you're only getting out the moisture in the woods. You're not getting rid of the toxins that could potentially seep out. Now, take it what you will, we will not be using any sort of pine or cedar bedding. We like to use Aspen. And Aspen is really good because it doesn't contain toxins that may seep out and cause upper respiratory issues in your smaller companions. If you guys have ever opened a cedar bag, or what Petco likes to call softwood shavings without naming the specific wood, it just reeks and it smells, and I don't like that. Aspen here, however, is actually such a relief when you smell it. Oh, I love this so much. However, there's different types of textures for Aspen. There's this big chunk, and I've actually gone even bigger chunks at this. It really depends on the processing plant where these are getting shredded up into little pieces. You can see like right here there is a big chunk of bark in this one here, but typically this comes from across the United States at different facilities, so you're gonna get different results. And that's said about every bedding I'm gonna be showing you today. So if it's a known problem and if they don't fix it, you might be getting the same stuff over and over and over again. But this one is Petco's So Fresh line that, surprisingly enough, is sold on Amazon, and it is natural aspen small animal bedding. This stuff right here, I wanna say, is really good at keeping the ammonia smells down. However, when it comes to comfort level, this isn't really that great, and I noticed that I don't really want to be using aspen shavings by itself. I want to recommend to you guys that if you are to use any sort of bedding I share with you in this video, that you should be mixing it up with something else, because it's a lot better to have different textures and different types of things to hold up and to make burrows for your small burrowing, foraging animals. So this right here, I won't use on its own. And like I was saying before, with that one, there is going to be different types of sizes and the way they are shredded. My most favorite Aspen is from KT, and even though it doesn't come in the biggest size like you saw right behind me here, this right here is still really great because it's very condensed, but it breaks apart very easily. And it's a lot softer of a wood than these types of wood shavings right behind. Even though they are the same wood, it's just the way they're processed, and I honestly would prefer KT Aspen more so than that. And also, not gonna use this by itself if I can help it. If I can help it. Unfortunately, if we get low at the rescue, we try to make do with what we have until I'm able to get more stuff, because the number one bedding type that I gravitate towards is paper bedding. There's gonna be different types of bedding, so we're gonna be talking about the first two from the same company. We got the KT Clean and Cozy here, and we got the KT Clean and Cozy Natural. With this one right here, the natural, even though it is soft and light and fluffy, it is actually a thinner paper. And this stuff right here has not been bleached versus this one that has been bleached and for some odd reason is much fluffier. But when it comes to natural brown paper bedding from KT Clean and Cozy, it's really flat. So you really gotta mix this with another bedding or paper bedding, because once the hamster walks on any sort of surface for paper bedding, it starts to compact. You remember how we like to get nice and fluffy in the beginning when we set up a new hamster or maybe gerbil enclosure, and then later on we see it gets lower and lower? That is unfortunately the problem with paper, and what some people have accused me of not adding enough paper into the enclosures. Well, when it starts out, it's about 6 inches and then it compacts down to about 3. You gotta understand out there, guys, I love you to death, but sometimes it's overwhelming when I'm being told I don't provide enough bedding and then it just compacts down. What I would say to that, however, is that you shouldn't really be disturbing your hamster all that much inside their enclosure. Even with the most friendliest hamster that I have, which is Carlos DeVille, my little baby, me going in there and just grabbing a chunk of bedding or even going in and trying to fluff up the bedding, that is them panicking, going, hey, what are you doing? This is my area, don't do that. So honestly, if you wanna keep it fluffy, it's not going to work, but try your best to add more so if you feel like when they compact that bedding down, it feels like they're not being able to utilize it. So just keep that in mind. So we don't really need to be all pitchforks and up in arms about when people use paper bedding. You just gotta understand it will compact over time, and to only fluff it up when necessary, like deep cleans. But this right here, I've gone so many mixed Clean and Cozy bleached beddings before that some of it is just perfectly balanced. Like this right here, I can tell it's very nice and fluffy, but other times I feel like it's super thin shredded bunch and I hate it, and it actually isn't full. The bag is actually loose and it doesn't feel compact, doesn't feel fluffy. There is types of manufacturers that will do a better job for the product that you are getting. So there's some times when I get really crappy bedding, and then sometimes like this one, oh, I love it. So you guys probably out there have seen this before, and recently one of my KT Clean and Cozy beddings had plastic pieces. You're wondering, what is that about? Unfortunately, during the whole processing, those pieces are just kind of fused together to create a solid. So if you ever get chunks like that in here, definitely report it to KT. Report the number if there is a number on this one. Is there a number on this one? K3222017.46. I believe that is the number that you typically would give them, or maybe it's the barcode one. No, I think it's this one. Either way, if you ever get some really bad bedding, report it, because they need to know. Their quality check might have just gone over their heads and things were shipped out without being thoroughly checked. It does happen. It doesn't happen as often to KT that I've noticed with others. So Selective Pet, I will not be using anymore. And the reason why is because I had several bags of the bleached bedding that had the horrific bleached smell that came out of it, to the point where I was wheezing. Unfortunately for me and all of my sensitive people out there that have issues with your respiratory and wheezing when you get dust, unfortunately I do need to use a mask every time I am handling bedding now, because it just gets so overwhelming. However, Selective Pet got way too overwhelming, and I also had issues with fused pieces and chunky pieces that actually cut me and made me bleed inside of their bedding. So I said no more, because they kept shoving out stuff. 8 big bags of those 178 liter bags that were donated to the rescue, but unfortunately just will not use them anymore. Quality check has just been thrown out the door. I will not touch those, and I especially will not touch the bleached ones, because if I am having a really hard time breathing in those chemical smells from processed bleached bedding, then I would think my small animals would be the same way as me, because they rely heavily on their noses rather than their eyesight or their hearing. But there's actually one more that's a different type of bedding than the KT Clean and Cozy. This is Carefresh, which is a lot denser of a paper bedding than KT Clean & Cozy ever will be. The bedding type for this I actually like a lot better, and even though both bags contain dust because there are fine particles when being shredded, and sometimes when you move that around, whew, it tends to get very particly in the air, and you can literally see the little fibers land on your specific strands of hair, and you're like, oh god, I have to wash my hair after this, there's just too much in here and they won't come off. Sometimes you might get that with Clean & Cozy, and sometimes you might not, but this is such a denser bedding. It doesn't really make burrows as great as KT Clean & Cozy, which is nice, light, and fluffy, and can hold structure a lot better. This right here is really good so that your stuff inside of your enclosure doesn't sink like Atlantis did. Because as you're aware, they will try to sink all the hides you put on the surface. That's why sometimes I actually like putting hides inside the substrate so they can just do whatever they want with them if they want to use them. Otherwise, they will just use bedding. They love bedding. They will burrow in bedding. But it is a good idea to add hides and different things. And sometimes I have wheel issues where I cannot stick the wheel stand in the bedding because it just flops over or it doesn't get propped up right. Here comes my solution. Carefresh. Dense bedding. Won't let things sink into the ground as easy as other beddings, and I like it. So typically, what I would do is mix some paper bedding with the Aspen bedding, and it creates its own structure. So with that being said, just mix and match. It creates such better structures when it comes to burrowing. It gives them alternatives, and sometimes one type of bedding may not be enough, so you gotta add a different type of bedding. But just make sure, guys, to add these types of bedding as your main litter absorber, because there are other nesting materials that I will talk about in a different video of which you can use to enrich your hamster's life and what it adds to their enclosure. But for now, we're just talking about bedding and the use of bedding as also litter and to keep your animal warm and cozy while inside their enclosure. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. It's always gonna be trial and error. They're always gonna be different. They're always gonna come from different manufacturers. I've actually had Carefresh before have rocks in the packaging, but that's not to say that all Carefresh bedding has rocks. Just take it like you will. Try to see which bedding you prefer more. So thanks guys so much. Hit like if you enjoyed today's video, comment down below with anything you'd like to say, and subscribe if you're new here and would like to become a part of the Munchkin family. Enjoy the chaos when I do chaotic videos, that is. But thank you guys, and I'll see you around. Bye-bye!